Thank you. I'll call to order at 7:01 the Thursday, March 11th, 2021 meeting of the Town North Andover Community Preservation Committee. I'll go ahead and read our opening statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on the Town North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public meeting, please email your questions or comments prior to or during the meeting to dbeckley, that's D-B-E-C-K-L-E-Y, at northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be provided to the committee before the meeting or read during the proceedings if received during or shortly before the meeting. With that, we can move on to our agenda. First up, I want to talk a little bit about the report we'll be making to the Select Board and to the Finance Committee on March 22nd and March 23rd, respectively. That was all in the draft presentation was in the packet for last week's meeting. I'm actually not sure if it made it into this one, but I want to make sure everyone had a chance to quickly review that and see if there were any comments that anyone had. My plan is to kind of run through those first handful of slides, take the notes in our minutes from tonight's meeting and our discussions on the individual projects, supplement that as a part of our report out to those two committees, like I said, on the 22nd and the 23rd. So if anyone had any comments or questions or concerns with that approach, happy to discuss those now. Did everyone have a chance to at least review it?
Yes.
Great. Okay. I think John sent around some numbers earlier today on where the fund stands as projections for the remainder of the fiscal year. I'll plan on just double checking those with Lynn right before the meeting, make sure no additional disbursements went out and we have an accurate number on it. But I think in general, as John stated, and as a meeting with Lynn a couple of weeks ago confirmed, we should have no trouble with regard to projections and the amount of funding available for the request that we got this year. So that is not an issue. So if everyone's on board with that approach, I'll continue to kind of take those notes and we'll be ready to move on to the next item on the agenda. All good? Great. Okay. All right. So we've got a number of projects to get through. Some I think will take longer than others, but I want to just kind of run through them one at a time with individual motions on each application. And the first two that I think we need to discuss, we'll take them kind of one at a time, are the two statue proposals, the Ann Bradstreet and Witches statue. Because recall from our February review meeting, I think those are deemed ineligible, but I believe we should still take a vote on that to how do we move forward with those applications. So do I have a motion on those two applications?
I move to deny.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
I would just add that we should pass along a side message to Mr. Smolak that we'd like his zeal on this, but it just doesn't fit.
Oh, absolutely. I've actually spoke to him, and I think I'm going to try and team up with him on some private funding because the ideas are absolutely fantastic. I love them. They just don't fit what we're allowed to do. So I agree, John. Yeah.
Right. And I did reiterate that in my initial conversation with Mr. Smolak early on. Said, we're certainly, in support in general of the ideas, but unfortunately our hands are tied on this one. So, all right, we'll run through just a quick roll call vote on that. Jack?
I vote yes to deny.
Thank you. All right, John?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Terry?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that is unanimous. Great. Okay, the next two, again, we'll take them one at a time. These were, recurring applications that we've had in previous years. So we're happy to discuss them. The first would be the Affordable Housing Trust request for $100,000.
I'd like to move approval of the affordable housing request for $100,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All right, we'll move to vote. Jack?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Terrific. That is unanimous. Next, the playground master plan for Thompson and the Ann Bradstreet Early Education Child's. I always screw up the name. The ABECC. In the amount of $200,000. This is the, I believe, final phase of the playground master plan.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. All right. And I will just note that for this, I did connect with Lori on this, and we'd like to have her in at a future meeting late in the spring to have an overall discussion of the playground master plan, what we can learn, what we learned as we went through the process. So she will have an opportunity to come and speak to the committee a little bit later this year. So, Jack?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Terry?
Yes.
All right, that too is unanimous. Okay. Okay, next up, we have the application from the town manager for the funding of a housing consultant to study 40B within the town of North Andover. The application, I'm pulling it up right now to make sure I have the right amount. The application is the amount of $80,000 is the total request. I think that she'd broken it up into different fiscal years, but obviously we can only approve what we have for this year. So the amount is in the amount of $80,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. This is Jack. If we approved every one of these projects, except for the ones that we already denied, would we be within our funding limits?
In terms of overall available dollars, yes. That's the spreadsheet that John sent around, and which I've also discussed with the town accountant. Yes.
I didn't do the math. I saw the spreadsheet, but I didn't do the math on these other ones. But okay, so we're not exceeding our financial freedom here.
No, we're not. I think
Okay.
we've got plenty of cushion within regards to that. So.
Okay.
Brian, where John being a new member, I think that, we very rarely, we won't approve projects that will exceed our funding. And many years, we roll over funding that we don't spend the prior year. John, actually, what he sent out today was fantastic. And I've always been confused by it sometimes, but I think you would have a mechanism, though, that where we would probably have prior discussions that we didn't have the money for certain projects. Am I correct? You would do that?
I believe so. And John, you can probably shed more light on this, but if you think of maybe some of the early days of the fund when you had major acquisitions that needed to be made, I think maybe were done over a period of years, whether it was through financing efforts or whatnot. But I think that's some of the mechanisms that are available.
You can bond the project. So let's say Yeah, and then the only amount that's attributed to the current year is the amount that you pay back in that individual year.
Yeah.
Some towns have used it pretty extensively. We haven't. On the land projects, we never did a long-term bond. The most we ever went out is we paid it out over 3 years, and usually we just paid it with one check. So.
Right. But that was like Carter Hill and Half Mile Hill, I think, were that way, right, John?
Yeah, there were 3 of them. I think we did that way, and we just did it in very short-term borrowing. Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess maybe to further elaborate, Jack, on your question. So as I understand it, right, we have the amount that's in the fund. We have the amount that has been previously committed in previous years that has not been closed out. Those are the current encumbrances against the fund. We have all of our receipts for the second half of this fiscal year plus the next fiscal year. I think is that how it runs through. And that's what ends up funding. We have some projection space in there. When you have projects such as this one that allocate a portion into fiscal year 23, we can approve the full amount, but we have to anticipate and treat it as if it's all being paid in fiscal year 22. So, for example, here, if the town wishes to spend $60,000 in fiscal year 22, and save $20,000 for fiscal year 23, they can do that. But we have to assume it's all going to be spent this year because we really can't assume what our availability is going to be for 23 yet.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
No, that's very enlightening, folks. Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks a lot.
The only other twist in this is that we are required to spend 10% of the amount of funds coming in for the current year on each of the 3 categories: affordable housing, open space, and historical preservation. And, that's the 1.9 million plus the state grant. So roughly we have to spend more than 230,000 on each of the categories which we have. So we if we didn't spend that much, what we would have to do is vote an article to reserve the difference between what we funded and the 10%.
Correct. And I believe if we fund everything left before us tonight, we'll be over that threshold on each of the 3 categories.
I took a look at that. I'm pretty confident that's the case. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. So we're still on the housing consultant study motion. Any further discussion on this one? Okay. We'll go ahead and take the vote. Jack?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Terry?
Yes.
All right. That is approved unanimously. Okay. Next up, we have the Housing Authority capital improvements for Folds Terrace and Fountain Drive.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a second. All right. Seconded by Bill Callahan.
Yeah. I just had a question. And Tracy, I know you're closer to them, but we have that one other large project, plus we have this one. Is that going to create a bandwidth problem for them, or can they do both at the same time?
No, they can do both at the same time. Yeah, we're actually seeing DHCD open up the channels for us to start really moving forward with a lot of this. No. So what happens is with some of these bigger projects, we bring in a DHCD, sorry, I have a puppy. I'm sorry. We bring in a DHCD construction consultant, as well as architects and what have you. So Maggie will definitely have the bandwidth for it.
Okay.
Very fair question. I should
I
know.
mean, it moves slow, as I've explained before, unfortunately. And again, I apologize for the puppy, trying to keep her busy. It does move slowly because government moves slowly, and the state of Massachusetts moves slowly. But yeah, she'll be able to move forward with these for sure.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Probably quicker than we've seen in the past, John, with other executive directives.
Yeah, I think there's some of that in there.
Yeah,
but,
I know what your concern is. Yeah, I
yeah.
totally do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll just make note the amount was $383,669 for the motion. So, okay, any further discussion on this one?
Stop.
that a
So
vote? Yeah,
sorry.
is that a vote? Yes. All right, Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy. Tracy's on mute. Tracy, are you yes?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Again, I'm home alone and the puppy's going crazy. I apologize.
No worries. Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, that is unanimous.
Tracy, if you're home alone, better that Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern don't show up.
Usually there's somebody here to take care of it. She says, hello.
New member tonight. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is the Bradstreet School Memorial supplemental funding to the additional project which we had already funded previously. Supplemental funding in the amount of $21,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
My only discussion was it wasn't clear looking at that. Maybe I didn't pay attention. Is that all incremental, or is it? It wasn't clear to me that the amount was going to go up very much when I read the thing over a second time.
Yeah, my understanding from Stan's it was a combination of two things. It was a more robust site work obligation as a part of where the monument was going, as well as enhanced plaques as a part of the monument. So, and he did attach, you'll see it in your packet, just a budget breakdown of the total project costs, what they've been previously allocated, what they're looking for now. So it looks at the majority of that, and looking at it now, is in materials for the site. About $5,000 in plaques and installation, and then additional labor for. I mean, it's a pretty massive concrete memorial there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this? I drive by there every day. It'd be great to have that one up and running. So, all right, Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
And that is approved unanimously. Okay, excellent. All right, next up, we have the gateway improvements to Wire Hill in the amount of $303,285.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by CJ, seconded by Jack. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say, I think this is a perfect project for us. It's one of the best ones I've seen come along in a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree, Terry.
Okay. John, do you have a comment? Your screen lit up.
No.
Okay, great. All right. We'll no need to belabor the point. Jack,
I vote yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
All right. Very straightforward. Thank you. Next, moving right along, North Andover Rail Trail Exploratory Phase 1 in the amount of $30,900.
I
Motion
move to approve.
Second.
Jack, second by CJ. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Great. Jack,
Yes.
John Simons.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Next, I'm going to take the Ridgewood applications. I'm going to break them up into two separate. The one for the Ridgewood Historical, and then we'll take the second burial ground secondarily. Ridgewood Cemetery, Phase 9, in the amount of, let me pull it up here, $661,500 for historical improvements along per Phase 9 of the Historical Landscape Master Plan. And a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Tracy. A
Second.
Second by John. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, great. Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
You guys are making this way too easy tonight. All right. Secondarily, the second burial ground also applied for by the Ridgewood Cemetery Association in the amount of $486,900.
Move to approve.
Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you, CJ. Seconded. Any discussion? Okay, great. Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Our last application of the night. This is for the Smolak Trails project. Actually, Mr. Smolak has updated his application request to the amount of $63,500. And to be clear, this is to install interpretive signage along a proposed public access trail on Mr. Smolak's property. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rick. All right, I'll
Yeah.
open this up for discussion.
I would say my thought would be that we make that contingent upon getting some confirmed written access, either in terms of an easement or some other legally binding term.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm a no at this stage. I'm unfamiliar, even with years on the committee, that I'm really unfamiliar with this commercial aspect, and this really enhances his business. Don't get me wrong. I want to bring people to North Andover for number of reasons, and I think it would improve his property, as well as probably bring more people and what have you. But I'm not really comfortable with enhancing a private commercial property at taxpayer dollars. We've done that. Private property enhancement that hasn't benefited the taxpayers who's paid for it. So I kind of have a lot of concerns about this. I think a lot of questions are left unanswered. So at the moment, doesn't mean next year I wouldn't say yes, but this year I'm a definite no.
Terry?
So I'm with Tracy on that. There's a couple of things that bother me about this, and the commercial end is definitely one that does. The other part is, and I think going forward, I'd like to see in any proposal that involves neighbors, that we notify the neighbors of what we're getting involved in, because I just don't like the idea that the neighbors have never been notified, and that what's going to happen at town meeting and what's going to happen a year from now when they put this in and we've invested in his business, basically.
Yes.
It kind of bothers me. So I'm a strong no.
And I'm going to echo Terry's sentiments in regards to the neighbors, because if you actually speak to the neighbors, they have a lot of problems with this.
Yeah.
Regardless of what was said last week, the neighbors have issues.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, just by way of context, and I'm not doing this to pick pile on Mr. Smolak, but
No.
He had a proposal a few years ago for doing the rock walls on his property, and we passed away from that for the very reason that you said, Terry. Tracy, is that it's a private benefit, but really little public benefit. So I guess the only thing that I would say, and, being the devil's advocate, giving him the benefit of the doubt, is that if he did give us written easement rights, there would be a substantial benefit to the town. But to this point, I don't think that he has actually done that. I mean, given there's opposition to this, I was willing to go along with it, but with strong opposition, I would oppose it and say, come back and work with us for something that basically is a public benefit and not a private benefit, and do it that way. That would be based on the feedback so far, my preference.
Yeah, history has shown us that yeah, I'm a no.
Yeah.
We've enhanced some private property across town on the backs of the taxpayer dollar that never came to fruition. And we all know I'm a parking lot crazy lady, and we're seeing it again with the Usla lot. So yeah, I'm gonna be a hard no with Terry and you, John. A hard no.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I would say the same things. Like, I think this is one where, the language and everything, and even when I think about farms, like I was just looking it up, there's a provision that you always see on farms that basically says, like, hey, if you get hurt at a pick your own farm, unless it's due to the wanton neglect of the owner, you're kind of on your own. And that seems to me to be like another particular thing about this. We're dealing with, a specially kind of carved out liability zone. So it really seems like the lawyers should be front, center, and first on this one. And if we can get there in terms of, A, the liability piece, and B, the public use piece, I'd like to have that kind of all straightened out up front and not something to be figured out on the back end after we've voted on it.
Okay. I think that's all fair, and maybe what I would suggest if this is going to go the way I think it's going, that we invite Mr. Smolak to work with us through the fall prior to next year's application, and kind of button up a lot of the loose ends on this one, so that we all feel a little more comfortable in what we're evaluating going forward. That's right.
Yeah,
CJ, did you have a comment?
No, I think I'd agree with all of that. That's all reasonable. It's all good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would agree with the public benefit part of it, especially. And that was a good catch to make sure that is part of the proposal. But I do want to add that I believe the community preservation funding was used to renovate the exterior of the North Parish Church.
Yes.
And the public benefit of that is it's a landmark, in town, but it wasn't for a public facility or anything like that. So I think, and that there were some significant funds on that too. So, we want to make sure we're consistent, and the public benefit feature of it is definitely a must. But, we need to be able to, if we're going to deny this outright and forever, we're going to have to defend something like that, a past practice.
Well, John, I think one of the things, and John Simons, you can probably explain it better. At the time that the North Parish Church was approved, we were actually able to provide funds to nonprofits, religious organizations, and what have you. And the CPC has been, our rules and regulations have been changed since then. Right, John Simons?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a state litigation that basically makes it extremely difficult to give to churches. But I think one of the differences is obviously, we marked it as probably the most iconic structure in North Andover. But what the town did get was that they got a permanent conservation restriction,
right?
A historical preservation restriction on that steeple. So there actually was a long-term public benefit because they have to maintain that forever. So.
Agreed. And I think for consistency's sake, if you recall, we did deny last year St. Paul's Church on those grounds, exactly because of the change in legislation. So
right.
Okay.
Fair to bring up, Jack, but I think we have tried to be consistent, if not somewhat conservative on that, in certainly in recent years. So
yep.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion? So again, the motion on the floor is to approve. So I'll need a vote. Jack?
No.
John?
No.
CJ,
No.
Tracy,
No.
Bill,
You're
Kelly,
muted.
No, sorry.
Rick,
No.
and Terry.
No.
Okay, all right, that one, that motion fails, or motion fails. Okay, that's everything. So what I'll do is
Brian, one other motion we make, I can make it right now, is that we fund 50,000 for administrative expenses.
Second.
okay, great. Any discussion? Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
Great, okay. Anything else before I move on?
If I could just say one more time, going forward, and I know we're not going to do it tonight, but in our application, anything that involves neighbors, I think we have to have some type of public forum that makes sure the neighbors understand what's going on around them that we're funding.
Well, I hear it. I agree with you in the sentiment. I want to make sure we're not overreaching as a committee in one regard, right? Because in a lot of projects, especially if they have to go through planning or Concom, that's really more their jurisdiction than it is ours. Jack or John, let me know if you disagree. I don't know that we have within our purview, and I'll confirm this with town council, what our obligations or rights are of notification other than through the public hearing process that we already go through. So I'm not disagreeing with your sentiment, Terry. I just want to make sure I'm not overreaching on the committee's authority.
No, that's a good call, Brian.
Yeah,
Well, wasn't
I think. Go ahead.
No, just wasn't the hearing last week where details of the projects were discussed? Wasn't that a public forum that abutters could attend and create and generate input for?
It was, and I think what I would say is to Terry's point, frankly, is that unlike a planning project, there was no notification of abutters directly on this. So, so I do think the sentiment is fair, and I think what I'll do if it makes everyone satisfies everyone, I'll speak with town council a little bit and just make sure that we're following the right process. And that we do have a process in place whereby we can better inform the public of the projects that are before us beyond our current process, so that everyone really can weigh in. Because I think it's valuable to have the overall public thought and public comment, and I think it would help inform a lot of our decision making. We solicit letters, we get letters of support for projects all the time. We should, make sure that we understand all aspects of the proposed project. So most of them aren't going to be as, impactful as this to neighbors, but I think your point is fair, Terry.
So going back to the useful property one more time, now we're getting all kinds of people saying they didn't know that this was going on. Now I know, they people don't pay attention. They're busy. They don't know what's always happening, in our world. So when something important, when we're spending a lot of money, I just want to make sure that the neighbors understand what's going on. And, I don't want to say, hey, you missed the CPA meeting and you didn't get it. So, anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah, Terry, I think you've done, really a remarkable job. And I think Rick has as well, for a lot of the recreation projects. And, it's been partly dealing with the neighbors who are the beneficiaries of it. It's getting volunteers to participate in the process. And I think your suggestion, we just extend the communication process even a little bit more broadly to get better buy-in at the front end.
I am, John. That exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, all fair. I do appreciate that, and I think there's a lot that went into that project in particular. So, but I don't take any of my comments, Terry, as thinking I'm disagreeing with your sentiment, because I do agree. So,
okay.
All right. Anything else on applications for this year? Good. All right, we'll move that forward, and then we'll talk about potential agenda items for the remainder of the spring. But we got through our big funding cycle, so thank you everyone for your efforts and diligence these last 2 weeks. So, can I get a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Tracy. Thank you. Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ. I'm going to skip you since you weren't there.
Yeah.
Yep. Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
Motion minutes are approved. Can I get a final motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
To say no second, everyone wants to hang out all night. We can do that. If you're
Look at
ready.
this. We're like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what, Brian? Before we adjourn, can I bring up one issue on the sign for Glennywood Lot?
Yeah, it's not on our agenda, but yeah, we can. Yeah, go ahead.
If it needs to be the next meeting, that's fine.
But-
However you want to handle it.
Why don't you bring it up and then we'll decide if we can discuss it.
Okay. So the issue is, I worked with Dawn Signtech to get a price for Greenbelt, Dave Rimmer. The cost of the estimate came back at a little over $1,800, so I forwarded that to Greenbelt. They had a little sticker shock with that. Their budget was $300. So my question was, I know we had spoken about it before about potentially funding the signs out of the administrative budgets. So I'm looking for some direction to give Greenbelt in terms of the sign.
Okay. I think on that, given that it would be a funding appropriation, we probably ought to wait till next meeting when it's on an agenda. If that's okay, if 30 days won't kill them.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll just keep going with that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Why don't we hold on that one until next month? All right.
Okay.
Okay. We're on the motion to adjourn. Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll talk to you next month.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Great job.
Good night, everyone.
Putting
Thanks, John.
everything together. Well done.
Thanks,
you.
Brian.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good work.
I know.
Right.